your comment at that time.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So let's give you 4 then.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead.
First items for Senate Bills 411 and 537. They passed through the Governance and Finance Committee, the California Senate, both with 6-2 votes. They passed through Judiciary Committee with a 9-2 and a 9-1 vote. 9-1 for 411 and 9-2 for 537. Both of those have to do with virtual meeting type things. 411 has been amended to apply only to neighborhood councils, whereas 537 is still for appointed bodies only. And the reason I emphasize that is because neighborhood councils are elected bodies, not appointed bodies. So as it stands, I don't think it would apply to us, but it could set a precedent for later on if they wanted to pull us in. 537 is much like AB 2449, which has a lot of restrictions, including the maximum use of 2 times per year for a member to work remotely. So those are the major differences. They were supposed to be at their 3rd reading today at the full Senate, but they were not covered. So I talked to one of the staff members in Senator Portatino's office, who's the 411, one of the co-authors, the primary one. And he said they should know a few days ahead of a time when it will be at the full Senate. And he thinks it'll be between now and June 2nd when that will be heard, and I'm guessing 537 at the same time. Second item for COVID, there is a new strain out there called Arcturus. One of the apparent, and I say apparent because there's not a lot of data on this yet to confirm, symptoms is conjunctivitis, otherwise known as pink eye. So if you or somebody you see has that, you might want to get tested or suggest that they get tested for that. Also, with 65 and over or immunocompromised, they're recommending getting a second bivalent booster. The 65 plus group can get it within, or as long as they've had their previous one 4 months 4 months ago. The immunocompromised group can get it at 2 months, and then any other recommended boosters after that, as recommended for the immunocompromised. And if we're going to save the Vincent Thomas Bridge comments, then I'll close with that.
Appreciate it. Okay, the next public comment on a non-agenda item is Craig Goldfarb. Craig?
It's been a while since I've been able to speak in public. On February 21st, I made what I thought was a short bike ride to Wilmington to meet a friend for coffee. It started out well. The bike ride out on the east side of Gaffey was in fairly well condition. And then I turned down on Anaheim. It's protected, but immediately I had to get out of the lane because there was a big tumbleweed in it. And then I got back in, and then I had to get out of the line again because the plastic bollard was turned over. The rest of the route was okay because they had recently put Anaheim on a road diet, and they put the bike lanes in. I met with my friend. We had a good cup of coffee together, a long talk, and I came back. It was okay going down Anaheim until I got to the park, and then there was trees, and I had to duck under the trees. Then I went back on Anaheim. I remember looking down the street. I'm on the west side of Anaheim near the softball fields, and all of a sudden, the next thing I remember was waking up in a LA Fire Department ambulance. I spent 2 days in emergency, and later on I met The total of it was I had stitches in my elbow, stitches in my knee, and a fractured pelvis. I'm just now walking. I put this blame on myself for thinking that it would be safe riding my bike on bike lanes, and for the city for not taking care of the bike lanes. They put streets on road diets. They went to a great effort to try and convince us to ride bikes and to use alternate forms of transportation. And then what do? Absolutely nothing. Anybody, you can look at Torrance, you can look at Redondo Beach, you can look at Long Beach, and all their bike lanes, bike routes are connected up, and they make sure that they're in good condition. Los Angeles, not so much. I brought a little show and tell. This is my helmet. This is why you wear a helmet. See the scratches? And I believe that's probably my blood. This is a brand new helmet. It's the first time I wore it. Has lights on it, turn signals and everything. So I still don't know what happened. My next door neighbor told me that I was in the middle of Gaffey, rolling around with people standing around me before the ambulance came. The ambulance drivers were speculating. They didn't know. They thought maybe I hit sand. I don't know how I got from the extreme right side all the way into the center. Hopefully, my experiences will lead to some change. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have under public comment, non-agenda items, Tom Norman.
Thank you. I'm speaking as an individual. Thomas Norman. Good to see you, Craig. Glad to see you walking. What I have to say will relate to it in a different way. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the Peck Park pool. My 3 kids were swimmers, and that used to be a wonderful asset to the community. That's now kind of a skateboard park. I just wanted to take a moment to put on the record that there were 2 swimmers that my kids used to swim with. Nick Jones won 3 events, or helped his team win 3 events. San Pedro High School won the city swim competition. If you know Willie Hatch was also a winner individually and helped San Pedro really represent us well in the city. And I'm speaking to make sure we try to find ways to do things, because it's really a shame that was a class that went on and helped San Pedro win last year. And it all started, or at least for most of those young people, it started here. And I think for the last 6 years or so, those young people who aren't swimming, who aren't keeping up and staying out of trouble, just doing something that's really productive, because we don't have a pool in this part of town. I've heard that is at Alta Vista, like other areas might be getting pools. And so just hope we all think of ways we can improve our bike trails, we can improve the park here, and we can get the pool going. But wanted to recognize those wonderful young men who did a great job for San Pedro. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one, and Gwen, is this public comment? Both items? Okay.
In regards to what Craig was discussing, back in 2021, actually in 2015, Mayor Eric Garcetti enacted Vision Zero, which was a goal to redesign LA streets to stop pedestrian and vehicular accidents by 2025, completely halt them. In 2022, the data showed that instead of decreases, the city tallied an increase in fatalities and injuries. So on April 29, 2022, the City Council approved Motion 22-0368, which instructed the City Controller to audit the effort to see what the expenses were, how it worked, and what was put in. Of course, there is an improvement in Anaheim. That was one of the hot spots. They focused on those hot spots. I believe that the data will come from those areas. But As we can see, our own community is impacted both by bicyclists, pedestrians getting hit, and this is a serious issue. I've looked at that motion. I have not seen the results of the report. Hopefully it will be released soon. But if it is not, I believe that it would be our responsibility to ask where it is. That's one issue. Now, the other one is that I would like to say that I'm now going to be attending the Community Forestry Advisory Council. And there's some interesting things that are coming out of that. The Urban Forestry Division and other entities such as Street Trees are looking at and focusing on CD15 very soon on an overall city effort to replant the street trees and look at the overall planning and land use. There's a lot of things in planning and land use that are possibly going to be encouraged through that committee to try to keep the canopy that is on private property. There's incredible loss happening both in private property and in street trees. And CD15, going back to CD15 and the projects that are coming up, they wanted to focus on this particular district because they've done an inventory of all the trees all through Los Angeles, and CD15 has the poorest amount of street trees. So there are quite a few very innovative methods to plant those trees and help them survive. I'm hoping to work on collaborating with them on a more interactive effort with the community, a buy-in once those trees are planted. There have been some programs that have already occurred in Watts where the tree people, for example, keep babysitting those trees and following up, and it's been very, very effective. So I just want you to know that that's coming up, and hopefully that will be an improvement through the council district. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have no other public comment cards, so we're going to go ahead and close this agenda item and move on to agenda item number 3, which is the results of the 2023 election. This will be an update. And John, will you be getting this report?
I don't have a report.
What would you like to kind of identify? The fruits of your labor?
Okay. How is everybody doing? So as you can see, we're here to congratulate the new and returning board members. It was official last month, the last official one that we got from the city attorney, city clerks. And we have Vic Christensen, who's our secretary, is returned. We have Cole Areola Carr, who's at the Park Western, but I don't see Cole here today. And then we have Gwen Henry. She's back again. Like that? She's back again. Then we have Thomas Norman. He's also back. Chris Valle, our vice president. Layla Aguilera. Yep, she's here. That's Layla, everybody. She's in the green jacket. She's from Averill area. And Ray Regalado, our president. Cynthia Gagne, at large. She's right here. And Michael Signorelli, which is not here. He's sick. Did I miss Adam? Oh, Adam, look at that. Sorry, Pastor. You know, I'm going to go to you-know-where for that one, probably. Michael Signorelli is not here. He's actually been out for a few days. He's sick. But Michael Signorelli, as you know, works here at the park. So he will be joining us from the at-large. And they will be here on July when we start our new fiscal. And if anybody would like to, we'd like to give them a hand of applause that they're our new members and our retiring ones. Mr. President?
Did someone say?
I said Mr. President.
Oh, that's okay. I thought it was,
that's talking to you.
I thought there was someone talking to me from a far off place. Okay, well, so this is agenda item, and we can take public comment. So if there is any public comment, raise a hand. Oh, okay. Chris?
Hi, welcome to new board members. Congratulations to returning board members. This is be a good time, and obviously for our new board members, you're not going to be seated for a couple of months, but this would be a good time to do sort of light research in what committee activities and take a look at our event calendars, because we will be calling on new members as well as our existing board members to pitch in. We're hoping to kind of return to a full schedule of in-person activities and, of course, all of our regular board business. So I'm the chair of Youth and Outreach Committee, if you're interested. And, again, do your research on the website. You can find out what the agendas and the activity of the other committees have been. But it'd be a good time to sort of suss all that out before you I wouldn't say need to make a commitment, but by the time you get seated, it would be a good idea to know what the lay of the land is. So.
Also, take their photos.
Oh, right. And, and I believe I'd sent out an email to everybody on the board saying that today I'd be taking photos, and just in case someone took me seriously, I actually brought stuff with me. However, no offense, it doesn't look like anybody's ready. So let's just tentatively say for July, when people get seated, that we'll be doing headshots, essentially, kind of right up there, maybe not with the pom-poms, but for our July meeting, put in your calendars, shave and a haircut, Sunday best, and all that stuff.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from around the table here? I do not see any hands. Opportunity for anyone in the audience to say anything? And I also see no hands, so thank you very much. We'll move on. Yes? Oh.
It looks like a good group, both the returning folks and a strong new class of new members. It's going to be a good group.
Yeah, the old guy's going. So.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to agenda item number 4, and that is our homelessness liaison report. Lori Jacobs.
Good evening, board, stakeholders, everybody else who's here. So as your homelessness liaison, I will give you a few updates. The CD15 working group continues to meet monthly, the first Tuesday of the month. If you're interested in getting on the distribution, you could email Joelle. Each time I report, I mention the LA HOP program, and I was told that when you submit to LA HOP, that data helps in identifying what resources they're going to provide to the people who handle the requests. So consider that too when you see somebody who needs help out on the street, somebody living in their car. Get as many details as possible. You can report it on the portal, and you could do it anonymously if you feel uncomfortable. So the first thing on my report is the RV encampment pilot program, and this is initiated by the LA County Board of Supervisors and has now gone to the Homeless Initiative. So they first submitted this last September as a motion. The Homeless Initiative is proposing funding recommendations to the board to support this declaration of emergency on homelessness. You can read through the report. I'm probably better talking to you without even looking at my notes. So RV encampments has been growing a lot, especially during COVID. And we may not see it as much in our area, but in case you aren't aware of it, there is an RV encampment in San Pedro. Go up the top of Westmont above Home Depot in the industrial park, and there's usually 15 to 20 RVs and or vans and cars and tents and trash up there. There are weekly outreach engagement between the, I believe, the Port Police, LAPD, and mental health and the service providers trying to offer services. Sometimes they get them to accept services, sometimes not, and then sometimes more RVs replace the ones that leave. In the Harbor Gateway area, and Gwen acknowledged she drove through there and saw what we're talking about. There's been 300 to 400 RVs in that area for many years, and it's not getting any better. So I'm thrilled to see that they're finally addressing this, and that the East Gardena unincorporated area is the first one on the list for the county to use this program. Some of the barriers they have is that most of these RVs are inoperable. They're towed there. And there are a few, I'll call them landlords, that buy these RVs and drop them off there, rent them out, and hire people to be the property managers to collect rent. And quite often these people also have to pay gangs protection money. And if they don't pay their rent on time, landlord doesn't care. They set them on fire. And just this year, there's been a couple of 100 fires in these RVs. Then they move them out, and well, sometimes a lot of the burnt out ones are still there. This is just a vicious cycle that's just not getting fixed. So now what do you do if the RV's inoperable and somebody is not living in there? Even if they want to dismantle them or move them, they have to have a value over 500 to even consider not dismantling them. And then they have to move them someplace and give the owner 45 days to claim it. So where do you move all these RVs during that period? So I'll be anxious to follow what the county and the Homeless Initiative are doing on this program. They've got their work cut out for them. And what they do here in this area will be sort of a test as to the next rounds on what they will do here. And keep in mind, the most important thing is the people that are living there need help, and they need to find some housing. And a lot of them are families with young kids and pets. If you want to know more about that, I can talk to you offline about this. The CD15 working group on homelessness also covered this topic. And first of all, I want to say thank you, because there were 3 Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council board members who showed up for the meeting this time. And I want to thank Pastor Adam, Gwen Henry, and Craig Goldfarb for being there, because we need more participation and engagement to the community. So you guys being involved was terrific. They actually had somebody from, I think, St. Joseph Center, who is on the outreach team to these RVs, who walked us through what the process is in trying to build up the trust with the people living there. And it can be 1 touch, 2 touch. It can take 2 years before people will accept services for a variety of reasons. So it was very eye-opening to hear what they've gone through. It was kind of cool, too, because there were probably 9 or 10 San Pedro high school students there for their government hours, and they were paying attention. And a couple of them raised their hands, and they wanted to know, can they get more involved? And one of them suggested they start a program similar to the DARE program for drugs, but do this on homelessness. And a lot of the solutions we need to look at, it comes with education, letting the public really know what's going on out there. And so it was great to hear that. So I reached out to some of them, and maybe something will come of that. As far as Mayor Bass, Jocelyn Dominguez is here, so I'm going to let her cover the budget stuff. And probably Amanda has budget stuff too, with Councilmember McCosker being on the budget committee. But so far, their proposal is $13 million for 2023-24 fiscal year, and another $1.3 billion. I said million, that was billion. Slight difference. And it's a big increase. A lot of it going towards the Inside Safe program. And another $47 million is going to go towards purchasing motels or hotels. The county right now is in the middle of Project Home Key Round 3. They've named 13 hotels that they're purchasing to turn into housing. They're looking first for places like extended stays that already have a kitchen in them, so it's a quicker turnover. So we'll learn more about some of those programs. Mayor Bass has also set up a new Office of Community Safety, which I think is going to tie into some of the homelessness work that we're doing. What I'm really hopeful about is seeing that LA City is now collaborating a lot more with the county. We really haven't seen that with the previous administration like we're seeing now, and having that collaboration is really important. You have Measure H county funds for services, and you have Proposition HHH city funds for properties. What about properties in the rest of the 87 cities in the county? So seeing some collaboration and some continuity is really important to deal with some of the complexities that they're dealing with. So I'm hopeful on that. I think I'm going to let Jocelyn talk more about Inside Safe. The first place they're going to roll out that is at the Lomita McCoy encampment. Most of you know where that is. It's actually, I don't know if it's kind of on the border of Carson, and it's not in Lomita, but it's on Lomita Boulevard just off of Vermont, and it's been there for many, many years with up to 200 tents in cars and things like that. So that we're on the radar for Inside Safe, which has already been rolled out in other areas. And they keep learning more with best practices on how to engage people and get the right players on the field there to help them. I also referenced the LA County Guide to Accessing Mainstream Services for Interim Housing. That's a mouthful. It's like the 180-page resource guide, and I had Christina help me put that on our website. It's a fountain of information, everything from overview, Department of Health Services, mental health, public social services, a summary of mainstream programs, training resources, referral forms. So if you have some questions, this is some place to go and start. Take a look at it, and maybe you'll get answers to your questions, or at least some direction on who to contact. As far as encampments, we're still haven't really made much headway. Lomita McCoy, as I said, that's going to be next. And then the 20 RVs at Gaffey Westmont. A third bad hotspot is the 5 Points, which we clean up and then it grows again. So that's on the list too. So as we talk about this, sometimes I forget that these are real people that are dying out on the streets. And we can't lose that compassion and remember that these are real humans. Sometimes I got to tell you, doing this work is really takes a toll. It's no fun. So, but together we can make a difference. So that's my basic report for now. I appreciate you letting me be of service. If anybody has any questions, I can answer.
Thank you, Lori, and thank you for all the hard work. I mean, this is not easy to put together, and I agree. The work is hard enough having to go through it. So around the table, anyone have any questions for Lori? Craig?
I attended, as Lori pointed out, the homeless liaison, the homeless CD15 homeless group. I wanted to say, some of the narratives there I found very unconvincing. The one about where Lori was saying that, these places are being moved and rented. It happens in some places. It's not happening all over. I've talked to these people. I've worked in downtown for 40 years. I've walked the encampment up there. Some of the stuff they're telling, people are saying are, trying to make it look bigger, that there was all this illegal activity. Everybody's a drug addict. Everybody's living in this thing. Fires happen out there. Some of them are set purposely by outside things. I mean, I've never heard it discussed of how the homeless that a lot of the problems they're having are by people that are homed, that live in homes, that are going there and persecuting them. And this is an area that we need to be working on. So,
thank you, Chris. Any other comments around the table? Okay. Audience, any comments, any questions for Lori? Okay, I see no hands. Lori, thank you very much for the information. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 5, reports from our elected governmental public safety representatives. We have a few here today, and I'd like to give start off with the mayor's office. If there's something we'd like to convey, talk about.
Hello, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jocelyn Dominguez. I am the Harbor and Watts Air representative for the office of Mayor Karen Bass. Very happy to be joining you all for the first time in person, and look forward to continuing to attend these meetings. I do have a few updates, and I know Lori already touched on it a bit, but I'll just quickly go over the breakdown of the budget. So the mayor did release her proposed budget on April 18th, and it include big initiatives to address our homelessness crisis in the city, but also public safety. So I'll quickly go over the breakdown for that. So for homelessness, she did propose an investment of $1.3 billion, and that includes for $250 million to go towards Insight Safe, $110 million for motel rooms and temporary housing, $62 million for services that includes case management, moving people to permanent housing, providing food and supportive services. Also $47 million for buying hotels and motels, and $21 million for permanent housing, which includes transition and setup of permanent housing and 12 months of rental assistance. Also $10 million for staffing. That includes directors, property managers, administrative staff, and service providers. And then I'll quickly go over the public safety, because that is another big initiative that the mayor wants to invest in, is to help with recruitment for more police officers, but also more 911 dispatchers. Because we know currently if you call 911 and it's non-emergency, you are on hold for quite some time. So we want to support our public safety with recruitment efforts, and also hiring more people in our personnel department to help ensure that the hiring process goes a lot smoother and faster. So she wants to invest $1 million to focus on public safety recruitment, and also offer bonuses for new officers who are newly sworn in, but also for officers that transfer in from other departments. Also increasing budgeting for our community safety efforts, and that includes unarmed responses like our CIRCLE program, and DART, which is our domestic abuse response team, and also increasing funding for GRID from $28 million to $41 million, and continuing our programming for summer night lights at 44 sites. So that's for the budget. I also wanted to share with you that the city has opened its third round for its small business rental assistance grant program. So as we know, a lot of small businesses are still struggling to recover from the pandemic. So the grant application is open until May 24th, and they are, if eligible, they can receive from $2,500 up to $15,000 to go towards financial assistance to aid in the recovery from the pandemic. So you can find that information on the EWDD website under the Recovery Resources tab. And also I did want to share that our beautification department is having its 5th annual beautification conference. And I will send that out. You can search it on Eventbrite to RSVP, but I'll make sure to send it through email as well, so it gets shared out with the board. And that is all for my updates.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Any questions? Gwen.
I know that currently the budget cycle, that you can make recommendations on different departments. Is there still an opportunity? When is that deadline, or has it already passed?
I'm not. The next budget hearing is on Friday. So if they are accepting public comment, it would be on Friday to call in. We can call in on that day for any of the departments? That I'm not sure. I can check and follow up with you. I'm not sure if it's for every department, but I know that they are meeting on Friday.
Will they be taking any written comments from this point forward through the system?
Written comments? Yeah, you can post those online. You can still upload those on the city clerk's office website. Yeah.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
John DeMeglio.
I just want to say, Bass has
done more in the last few months than any of these guys have ever done. And it's showing all the time right now. It's amazing what's going on. It's because she's actually doing something which no one else has. I just like to see what you think about her getting on board, because the main problem that we're having with homeless and everything else. The main problem we're having with everything else is the county is not providing services to these people correctly and cutting them off. And it's a lot of work to get back in the system for these people. And that's a major problem. And that's part of Janice Hahn's area also. And she hasn't done anything with this either. I know Bass has talked about it, and I know she'll do something about it. But that's the main thing. I have services. I have a son that has a disability, and it's lousy, plain out lousy. And that needs to be corrected. Just thank you anyways. And I really support Ms. Bass.
Yes, thank you for that. And yes, thank you for that. We have been able to see a lot of success through our initiatives. We've been able to house over 1,100 individuals just through Inside Safe. And we are taking that into consideration. When we do our operations, we do make sure to assess what are the needs in that encampment, in that community, and make sure that we are providing the services to those individuals and putting them on a path to permanent housing. With the budget, we do want to be able to fill in the gaps with what the county is unable to support at this time. But we are also working closely with our service providers to make sure that our participants are getting the needed services. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Any other questions from around the table here? See no hands. Any questions for our mayor's representative from the audience? I don't see any hands. Jocelyn, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for a great report. Okay, let's go to CD15, and I see our 1-5 leadership here. Okay, great. Thanks for being here, both of you.
Hello, everyone. The principal is here again, twice in a row. No, I'm just kidding. So I just have a few things. First off, thank you for inviting us here. I know most of you, maybe some of you were there on Tuesday, but we welcomed 3 new harbor commissioners. One, Lee Williams, is a local San Pedro resident. The other, Mr. Michael Muniz, and Honorable Lucille Roybal Alpert. I don't know if I said that right. Something else, on Tuesday, tomorrow, the 9th, committee will hear the EFID for San Pedro, so if you'd like to listen in. Public comment is done, but you can also still do written comment. Friday is the proposed budget in council, so I would encourage you all to listen in. And thank you for all of those who did send in public comment last week, and any of you that send a written comment. It really does help. We had a wonderful Cinco de Mayo event up at the San Pedro Community Gardens. It was really great. There was a jumper for kids. Actually, a group from Peck Park performed. There was some delicious tacos. And so thank you for all of you who attended that. As always, it is super important to use 311. There's an app, there's a website, and you can also call. You can report things like potholes, illegal dumping, homeless encampments, all those things. If you report something through 311 and feel that it was closed unwarrantedly or it's taking a little too long, feel free to reach out to Christian or myself, and we can look into it for you. Lastly, there is a maker's market. If you guys have never been, There's a lot of different small businesses from Crafted and local small businesses. They will be having a pretty big event down in North Park area of the West Harbor. So I would encourage you to go. I believe it's from 10 till 2. Also, the fish market is now open in their permanent temporary location. They're open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. daily, so go check them out. And I think that's everything. And I will pass it over to the boss.
Thanks to Amanda. I won't do this to her every time. But as some of you know, Connie has a drumming class on Monday nights, so it gives me a free night to run. I just came over from Coastal, their committee meeting. I wanted to come over and say hello to you all. But particularly, I want to go to every single neighborhood council. I want to go to every single committee I can and talk about the Vincent Thomas Bridge. Can you give me a couple of minutes to discuss that?
Yeah, in fact, I wanted to say a little bit about it for the meeting that we had. But no, go ahead, please.
Sure, thank you very much. So, as you know, the Vincent Thomas is an asset of the state. It's a Caltrans asset. I think we would all agree that if the state tells us it needs to be redecked and repaired, it needs to be redecked and repaired. Extraordinarily important. I do not know how long they've had this in the works, but I am expressing in every venue my disappointment in the manner and method and skill with which Caltrans has gotten the word out, because it was really disappointing. At the first meeting that we got notice of, our office went, and there were 3 members of the public present. And we were told by Caltrans that they had knocked on doors and that they had gone on TV and they had been on the internet, clearly ineffective. At the second meeting that we all publicized together, there were 6 people present on that online meeting. Still, it's nothing compared to what the effects are. It's, that bridge sees 45,000 travelers a day. 11% of those are heavy-duty trucks. There's a lot of impact on our communities. We are in the scoping process, and you all know land use, but just to remind ourselves, scoping for the environmental documentation is the earliest possible step, and so I will give them that. But they are still doing the scoping of what the environmental document will look like, what it will consider. It will be an environmental impact report, and I think it's important for us to use every method to get our comments in and make sure that we are studying all of the impacts. This is not just about traffic. This is also about environmental degradation. This is about just the wear and tear on our infrastructure. And so we have to get all those comments in, and then when the EIR is in draft, we have to get our comments in again, and we have to make sure that we're fully mitigating these impacts. So, as you know, the three alternatives as of now, and this is just the state telling us what the alternatives are. There could be others based on our comments, but the 3 alternatives they're looking at is a complete closure of the bridge. And by the way, all of these would start in 2025, giving us time for the environmental review. And I would not be surprised if that slips, but let's say it's 2025. We'll take the state at their word. The full closure would take 9 to 12 months to complete. That means nobody goes up and over that bridge except construction crews for 9 to 12 months. Their second option is to have 1 lane open. That's not 1 lane in each direction, 1 lane total open. So a picture of flag persons and some, going over to the island in the morning and coming back in the evening, for example. I don't know how they would do it. That would take 2 years in their estimations. Or having 1 lane in each direction, which a lot of people's minds go to. It is estimated that would take 3 years of construction work. And all of those and more, I'm sure, will be analyzed. The real issue for all of us is that regardless of whether it's 12 months or 3 years, there will be detours because that traffic still has to move, coming down south towards the harbor and getting to the island, or coming from San Pedro and getting to the island and heading over to Long Beach. All of that traffic will be detoured. There are limited options, and the most immediate options are Harry Bridges, Anaheim, PCH, and the commonality of all of those are significant impacts on Wilmington. And if all of us know that in Wilmington today, there are already a lot of impacts from the port. Any of those streets now have idling trucks cut through neighborhoods. The impacts are terrible on Wilmington. We want to make sure that we're all sticking together in the 1-5 to make sure that we're sticking up for our neighbors. That would be terrible. I think that the options should include detouring traffic as far north as possible for those folks coming from downtown Los Angeles trying to get to Long Beach. You can do it by 405 to the 710, for example, and I'm not a traffic engineer, but we need to get those comments in early. I also think it'd be important for us as a community of neighborhood councils and as a community of interest with Harbor City, San Pedro, Wilmington, the Gateway, that we comment in front of the state to make sure that they are mitigating our streets, sidewalk streets, curbs, gutters, and putting money into repairs before the traffic is diverted and after. It's a $695 million project. There needs to be money put into the mitigations for the impacts that project will cause. So this is something that's really important for us to come together early on. I know your nature. I know who you guys are, and so I'm sure you will be on it early, but I just wanted to get here and thank you for that in advance. Look forward to working with you on it. Yes.
You through with?
Yes, sir.
If I can, I'd like to share a couple of things that I've done since that meeting that was there, and something that I'd like to have a further conversation with you in your office, Tim. And that's I think there was a success in that meeting. The success being that the public comment period was supposed to end on the 12th, May 12th. They heard what we were saying, because I think the common theme of that meeting, the virtual meeting, was the fact that that's not enough time.
Right.
We needed more time. So someone just came in from Caltrans and said that they're going to extend the public comment period until, I believe, May 27th, which 26th. So I think there you have a small victory and maybe a little larger window for us to come together and make the comment. I have made phone calls to our other neighborhood council presidents so that we can come together and possibly make sure that at some period between now and the 27th, we can try to convince the people at Caltrans to perhaps maybe redo that particular public comment, and perhaps maybe we can have a much better group of individuals making comment, an informed comment. But the other thing, too, that I kind of thought about over the course of the weekend is the fact that this is going to be how many years in progress in the process of taking this particular project going. And I am of the belief that no matter what we may suggest and no matter what they may plan, Caltrans, there are going to be adjustments that need to be done, possibly, especially with traffic mitigation. I'm hoping that we can convince Caltrans to establish a community advisory group that will be in place the whole time the construction is going on, so that there is constant communication between community and Caltrans. Because if we as a community come together and identify needs, we have an avenue to be able to talk to them about it and get them taken care of immediately. So that's something else that I'd like to maybe explore with you. And also gain the support that this is what we need. So I'd like to have a little bit more conversation with you inside, and we can maybe plan this out if that would be okay with you. So I see we have some hands here, so I'm going to go ahead and I know Vic had an item that he wanted to cover, and then Melanie, you're next.
I don't know if I missed it at the beginning of when you were talking, but not only was the turnout on the online meeting was good. I think they quoted 93. So. Oh, really?
I was a panelist, so I will tell you it was 63 participants and a whole bunch of staff. So it was probably 93 total, but
Maybe they counted their staff, which really doesn't.
That happens a lot.
Which really doesn't count for that.
When I said there was only 3 that came to the first meeting, they said, no, there was 15. Well, I know there were 12 staff members.
Oh, well, that's what I was going to say. The in-person one was even worse.
Yeah.
And I heard the number 3. So obviously the outreach was dismal. One thing that and some of this I put in the chat, so hopefully they have it and we'll actually do it. But one thing that needs to be done on these maps they're sending out, it's fine. It's good to have what the detours would be, but they also need to show where the road closures are going to be, such as the southbound Harbor Freeway off-ramp to the bridge and Harbor Boulevard, such as the on-ramp from Gaffey, or the connector from Gaffey that just right at Channel that connects to Harbor Boulevard and the bridge. Mm-hmm. Because it would be ridiculous to have those two open because you're going to bottleneck at the off-ramp to Harbor Boulevard. Mm-hmm. So that's just one example, but they need to have where those road closures are going to be. So regardless of where they designate the detours to be, people may want to go somewhere else, because if the public assumes that these detour routes are going to get crowded, which they likely will, they may want to take a different route. So they need to show more on these maps than just the detour routes. They need to show the road closures so people know, hey, maybe I want to go that way. Oh, no, I can't because it's closed. That kind of thing. So if there's any way you can encourage them to do that.
Well said. Really well said. And you're right. It is worse. That's the one that's really in conflict, or certainly has the potential to be in conflict, is that off-ramp for Harbor Boulevard, which we all want, which we want to have happen. But there's also our plans that I'm glad for, where we're going to be widening and extending Anaheim and East Wilmington, and we're also going to be doing Alameda Boulevard in East Wilmington. And that's a whole network, and all of these things affect each other. So you're well said.
Is that going to include repaving the horrific conditions of the streets, like I believe Alameda, unless they've fixed it recently, is still bad?
It's still bad.
Things like that? It's
still bad, and we are in the, it's ridiculous to say, but we're in the city, not we, my office, we're in the 20th year of planning on the Alameda widening and fix. And so it's been in the process for 20 years, and Alameda will be widened, improved, and redone. And fortunately, that process of planning is coming to an end. We're going to break ground on that soon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do I have to turn this on? I think so.
It's on.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One of my big concerns with the bridge is that if they route North Gaffey, if the trucks start coming, we have a huge impact on North Gaffey as it is.
Yeah.
That road is in such bad condition right now with potholes and all the way up to the Channel Street intersection. And trucks line up already. I mean, I'm traveling because of taking care of my mom at different hours during the day, that direction to go to the other part of San Pedro. And the trucks are lined up there already as it is. And I just cannot imagine the impact if they reroute them through 5 Points and that area up through North Gaffey. Like I said, the road is already a mess. Imagine if somebody doesn't repair it now, what it's going to be like once they start the Vincent Thomas Bridge.
Completely agree. Yep.
The other thing that I wanted to bring up to you was, I don't know if you got my phone message a few weeks ago that for 4 days, the intersection of Channel and Gaffey, the light was out and there was no traffic controller there or anything. There's accidents happening boom, boom, boom constantly there. And people just don't know how to yield.
I got your message, and your timing was perfect because I sit on the budget committee, and in the budget committee, DOT came to the table, and I said, do we have a system where you get automatic notices of streetlights that are out? Yes, we have it called ADSAC. And I said, well, it's not working because for 4 days in a row, we've had the problem at Channel. Because that's the way I live off Summerlin. I live right across the canyon. And so that's the way I go. And I hit that one, and we reported it, and it did get repaired and broke again. So it did get repaired twice.
Oh, Lord.
But they did not send out the white gloves for traffic control, not because they didn't get notified, but because we have a shortage of the white glove officers. And so those were all issues that I brought into the budget discussion. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.
Chris.
Hi there. I'm going to break my own rule just a little bit and overlap a lot of what's been said already. But one thing that sort of strikes me, because I've had a long-standing beef with just the general state of the infrastructure in the Harry Bridges, Henry Ford, Anaheim, Alameda area, which is, I mean, it looks like it's been 20 years in the making. I mean, it's the worst quote-unquote pavement I think you can find an example of. I mean, dirt would be smoother. And there's plenty of dirt over there as well. But since we have what sounds like a 2-year or so run-up, and with things like the federal infrastructure bill, that these access routes, these alternative routes, are things that have been sorely lacking in maintenance this far. And what this kind of reminds me of is the pre-COVID situation where we had all these sort of public institutions and functions and agencies that may or may not have been in the best shape, but we had this sort of massive glacial disruption of COVID where everything that was teetering kind of sort of fell over. And this is, I think, going to be a regional disruption that whether you're in Torrance or Carson or Long Beach or San Pedro, when this bridge closes, whether it's for 9 to 12 months or for 3 years, it's going to be felt in Torrance and Long Beach. And so the public works and street services and whatever from those cities, I would hope would be brought in as early as possible. But the amount of care that those roads have needed just on their own, merits so far is one thing. But I think of all of the on-ramps and off-ramps that are one lane that, if all of that bridge traffic is going elsewhere, there's going to be a bunch of places where, whether the pavement's in great shape or not, are going to become bottlenecks. And so, if you're over on Santa Fe and Long Beach, or if you're trying to get onto 710 in Anaheim or whatever, it's going to be bad everywhere because, what you're saying, 45,000 travelers a year are going to be pushed elsewhere. And if it's one lane, honestly, I'm looking at these, the three basic proposals, and I think closing the bridge would be more merciful than giving someone the idea that they might possibly get across with one lane. That's, if you know that you can't go there, that would be a lot more helpful than thinking, oh, maybe I can make it because you won't. And so I guess what I'm saying, long story short, is that as much as can be done as early as possible because of what those areas already needed, but like really kind of regional strategic traffic rethinking, especially since 710 is one of those things that's teetering constantly. It doesn't take very much to make 710 impassable. So closing the bridge is not going to, make that any easier to live with. So I would, I guess, ask if there's any way that at the city, at the state and county levels, if appeals can be made, let's say to Caltrans or to, federal DOT or whatever, that, since we can always leverage the 40% of our economy that runs across those bridges, say, hey, look, since we're talking about infrastructure, since we're talking about supply chain integrity, this would be a great opportunity to get a 2-year jump on this absolutely predictable catastrophe that's going to happen traffic-wise. So, you guys want to keep these containers moving. You guys want to give Wilmington a break and get these idling trucks off their streets. We have a pretty significant run-up where, I don't know if you can get a guy with a hot mop and some tar out there, but anything would be better than sort of waiting for this glacier to actually hit us when the bridge closes. Because, I just feel like this might be the best time for that bad thing to happen in terms of how much money could come possibly downstream from the state and
completely agree. I will also add, only tangential to what you said, one of the things that we need to do is bring Pacific Maritime Association and the ILWU into the conversation. A big chunk of those 45,000 daily trips are folks trying to get to work. And there are ways, and I've already talked to the ILWU executive board, there are ways of working with PMA to adjust work schedules to make sure that we're spreading some of that work out, some of that traffic out. But going to your point, Chris, this should be our call to action to work on all of those projects. Alameda needs to get done. Another one I didn't talk about is Lomita Boulevard. Lomita Boulevard going east to the east side of Wilmington is virtually a dirt street today. It is shocking. It is shocking that we the city has collectively allowed that to happen. It's a street that's shared by Carson and LA, and we need to quickly get the other jurisdictions involved. And so I turn to Amanda, because let's make sure that we talk to the South Bay COG and SCAG, because I think this asset, this bridge, is not just an asset for moving commuters. This is an asset for the supply chain.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they call them major arteries. That's like what happens if you block an artery, the whole thing kind of falls over. But I think it's kind of the time for innovation, because I think it is such a potentially huge issue that this is a time for us to maybe, think outside the box in terms of, like you're saying, talking to PMA and ILWU, moving people differently is going to be part of like making this as painless as possible. And
the port, by the way, we have to throw the port into one of the massive governments that needs to participate with us. So we need the port also to do their part. So sorry, Mr. Chair, I keep speaking.
Okay. Get some good stats going.
Yeah.
I have Craig's hand that went up, and also Dan.
Okay. Part of this it's sort of amusing, because back in the 70s, Vincent Thomas used to be a toll bridge, and they had decided that from one direction it was 25 cents, another direction was 25 cents.
Yeah.
Then they got the bright idea to make it 50 cents from here going into Terminal Island. Another way it was free. So we couldn't afford the 50 cents, so we would drive, when we had to go to Long Beach, up Anaheim, and then we come back over the Vincent Thomas. So but a lot of things have changed. Mm-hmm. Anaheim is in much worse shape, and too bad you didn't hear my public comment, because I was speaking about the bike lanes and a horrific accident I got on Gaffey. But all those streets have bike lanes on them. Just put Anaheim on a road diet, putting new bike lanes on it, and all this is what's going to be impacted. Mm-hmm. Gaffey, for the most part, is in bad condition. Most of the streets in San Pedro and there, Lomita, if you look at the intersection, Lomita ends, I'm trying to remember the street. I was turning there on my bike. It is so bad, I was riding my bike like that over it. And there was no way around it. There's truck traffic all over these areas now that is heavy. Mm-hmm. Anaheim, the same way. So I don't understand how this happens. They were all quiet about it when they were building the new bridge over in the Long Beach. They were saying, "Oh, everything's there. We're going to repair Vincent Thomas Bridge and keep it up." They built a new bridge going the other way. I was thinking, we need that same thing. Why are we just updating an old bridge that actually, to me, seems rickety, when we should be building like they did on the other side? If this is the kind of traffic and the increase of traffic we're going to be seeing, a 4-lane Vincent Thomas Bridge does not make sense.
I would not be surprised to have people comment that we need a new bridge. I wouldn't. That might be part of the discussion. By the way, I do remember the 25 cents each way, and then it was 50 cents. You had to pay 50 cents to leave the island. It was free to leave San Pedro, and the legislative background on eliminating the toll was that the statutorily, when that bridge was authorized, the toll was allowed up until the point where all the bonds were paid off. And so actually those 25 cents that we paid each way paid off the bonds. That's why that went away.
Pat, I saw your hand up, but we have some other hands here, so I'll get to you. And then Lori. Okay. Dan, go ahead.
I'll defer to Gwen. I think her hand was up first.
What's that? Okay.
Go, Gwen.
Well, I'm very glad that, Ray, you've suggested the advisory committee. So I've gone beyond just our little area here for commuting. I used to commute all the way to Glendora and San Dimas, and I would use the 710 and the 605. I would use the 105. I used the 90. I used them all. Mm-hmm. I used surface streets to get out and in. Battling trucks in my little Ford Escort 2-door, this is going to impact traffic all the way up at the 10, way far away from here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole network.
Mm-hmm.
I hope the Caltrans is accommodating that entire network. And if the trucking and logistics industry is not included in this, I don't know what to say.
And the trains. We should probably include and bring in the Alameda corridor and the train system as well.
But now, I was privy to a very small type of kind of solution that happened over by Beverly, the Beverly Center.
Mm-hmm.
The community over there wanted a safe bicycle route, and literally the community came out and they found a route to create a quiet bicycle street to get through there because the entire community was unable to even get groceries. They couldn't even walk or bike or do anything. Their little 2 minutes down the block, it was 45 minutes. So they came together, found this route, were able to get $3 million through Metro or whatever it was, and make it happen. And now the community is able to get through their own neighborhood just to go shopping. So I believe that it would be really great if, for example, out-of-the-box ideas were created, such as the Channel Street exit could be local traffic only, or at certain times trucks could go at this time, and funnel the trucks to a certain area. Now, my fantasy, my dream thing has always been is that if this kind of money is going to be put into the surface streets and everything in the area, and I've mentioned this before in other committee discussions, but this area needs what all of California has, which is like a truck station where there is amenities for trucks to be, a really good solid street where they're not anywhere near Wilmington, a sound wall, anything. I believe that this is a tremendous opportunity to create a trucking facility flow kind of thing. And if they're going to put money into this, put it into local traffic can go this way, trucks can go this way, this is the timing for the trains, and that kind of thing. But it really is going to impact all the way to freaking San Dimas. I kid you not. I mean, I've been on the 10 freeway up over there, and the littlest amount of truck traffic that has to be rerouted to downtown, it's the littlest amount at certain times. It's just insane. So I cannot overemphasize the overall civic and Los Angeles basin impact that this is going to make. So I hope that other parties may be brought into this.
Thank you. Well said.
Thank you, Gwen. I have Dan and then John.
I was about to say I yield my time to everyone else, but great comments all around. Absolutely vital. We need to be having these discussions. Should have been having them for 10 years, 20 years, name a number. This needs to be a dedicated part of our lives if we're going to live here. We have to figure this stuff out. By the way, all of this is played against the backdrop of the 2028 Olympics. You had 2 years to plan and 3 years to build it, barely, and that's it. No mistakes, no stopping work for a year to dig out cables under the LA River. It's got to go right. This is a great opportunity to discuss all of these things. I will say this as I prepare to exit my 18 years on this board. My number one frustration in terms of infrastructure in this city has been there's always money to build something. There's always money to rebuild it somehow. There's always money to pay off enormous injury lawsuits. There is never any money to do basic maintenance. And in a park that's mowing the grass. On the streets, it's pothole repair and that sort of thing. There is a missing link in there that I think we need to fill in a very serious manner as we look at budgets in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. John DeMeglia?
I'm one of those guys that have been in this harbor 40 years now, working in the harbor 40 years. That bridge right now is the lousiest place because you don't know when it's going to shut down. You don't know there's an accident that's going to happen. You don't know when the traffic's going to build up. We went from ferry to this bridge here in 62 when they built it. It's outdated now. Beautiful bridge in Long Beach. This is totally outdated. We're spending money on a bridge that isn't going to do anything any different than it's doing now, and it's chaos now. So as far as for myself, I ride that bridge. I drive that bridge at least 5 days a week. Okay? You got all those ports there. Evergreen, APL, NYK. All these ports rely on this bridge. Big relief also in the system was trains. Trains have relieved a lot of the truckers running around the area. Okay, this is not the solution for this bridge. The bridge needs to be widened so everything can flow. This is a major port. This is the most major port on the West Coast. And we're throwing pennies at something that needs dollars. It's wrong. It's all wrong. Chris is right, though. If you're going to resurface it, you need to close that bridge down because it's already chaos now. I don't know whether I'm going to get to work on time or not, if I have to go all the way around or not. It's better you shut the thing down, resurface it, and do what you have to do. So you know every day that I have to travel that way to get to, which I usually go as Evergreen. Like I say, it's right at this point right now, it's a disaster. How many times I've been late for work just because one little accident stops up and the thing just flows. There's, like you said, there's thousands of people that ride that bridge.
Right. And so many of them are workers. So many like you are folks just trying to get to work. And that's why it's important to bring in, 13 in the district council and, the bosses and the checkers to make sure everyone understands the impacts. And I think the voice of folks that depend upon that to get to work on time is probably the most important voice we have out there.
And then the suicide situation when the entire bridge is stopped because of an individual.
Yeah.
That safety aspect.
Thomas?
I'll keep this brief, but thank you, Councilmember McCosker, for being here. I wanted to say I see your staff lots of places, doing a great job. I want to commend you for listening. I think that's one of your amazing attributes. It's so important. So thank you for listening to us today and listening everywhere you go. I'll put in a little plug for my daughter, Abigail. You probably saw the LA Times. You saw Nick Jones. You saw Willie, local San Pedro kids doing really well, making us proud. And so Abigail's always like, when's somebody going to do something about Peck Park, that pool where they used to swim with my daughter, a lot of kids from this area. It's a little complicated. It's not the same as a city park. Just hope that I don't have to tell my daughter in 20 years they're still planning. I appreciate your honesty, too, with how long these things take. But just putting a plug in there and just thanking you for being somebody who would spend the time with us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. On pools, I think pools are extraordinarily important. I think another conversation that I'll come back and speak on, I think we have to go back to the ballot for and be honest with the voters and be really, really clear about what we're paying for, what we're not paying for, and see if we can get folks to say that they want to put money into the infrastructure and the maintenance of our parks. Make a commitment about building and maintaining what we have. So Peck Park is pool. I swam in Peck Park pool with my grandpa as a kid, and it's sad that we're going to have to replace that whole pool, and we're not going to do it from general fund, frankly.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other hands from around the table here, so let's go out to the audience. And I saw two hands, Pat Nave and then Lori Jacobs. Pat?
Tim, Gina Martinez and Teresa Mota mentioned to me something about a Wilmington Truck Task Force consortium. I guess it's state, federal, and local people. Is that a real group, and what are they doing? How do they fit into this approach on this account street?
So we've had since actually just before my time, but I expanded it. The first meeting I had with city staff was to add to the task force, which was meeting monthly, and we increased the number of meetings. It's Port Police, LAPD, DOT, Street Services, a bunch of, and some other agency, a city attorney, who come together, and we still are doing Zoom meetings where we work on, did I say DOT? For realigning some of the streets and putting up bollards, where we're working to try to redirect or direct truck traffic that is impacting Wilmington to keep it out of neighborhoods. And so that's a regular meeting. And if anyone wants to participate, you can contact the office. You can get a hold of Amanda. Folks can come into that meeting. We work on things like, for example, and for those businesses in Wilmington that have a legal right to go from point A to a truck route because they're not on a truck route, we come up with the best routes possible. Nothing is perfect. The best routes possible, and we put bollards on streets to keep them from cutting through side streets so they can get to the truck route as quickly as possible. We meet with residents to talk about the impacts. But I will tell you that probably the best thing we can do in Wilmington on this issue would be to build out that Lomita Boulevard and have Lomita Boulevard be a full street that goes all the way from the freeway, from the 110, all the way to Alameda, does a flyover on the train, over the train tracks, and then flip all of the businesses that are sort of on the north end of residences in Wilmington and send that traffic, require that traffic to go to Lomita Boulevard. I realize it's not in your jurisdiction, but it relates to this whole bridge thing. So, Pat, you're welcome to come. It is a process where we're just trying to tinker on the edges and do whatever we can to protect the communities and the air in Wilmington.
Thank you. Lori? If you can speak loud enough, but the mic would...
Thank you, Tim. I was at the scoping meeting, just found out about it that morning.
Yeah.
Just a couple of points. One, I had breakfast with somebody from Florence this week who also was at that meeting, and she said she tries it all the time. So what everybody's saying is the effect is much broader than just the harbor area, but obviously Wilmington is going to be greatly impacted. I didn't hear anybody talk about what's going on with the rework of the on-ramp that they're supposed to be, should have started on, how that's going on. And then I'm just going to say, we've spent a lot of time talking about this today because some people are hearing about it for the first time because of the lack of outreach. We probably should kind of get this advisory committee going and table this here because our minds are like, what about this? What about that? We have a lot of input and concerns. And so I appreciate you, what you said at the scoping meeting. The lack of outreach, yes, definitely everybody heard that. And to only have, well, now it's 60. I thought it was 193. And apparently I was one of the 60. But do you know anything about the on-ramp rework? Is that on hold? Or is it going?
It's not on hold. The off-ramp, on-ramp for Harbor Boulevard off the 110, yeah, no, it's still moving forward. It's an important piece of the whole system. It is what's going to give us the ability to accommodate all of the additional traffic that we hope to see with the waterfront development and visitor serving stuff. It's also going to make that interchange safer for everyone. But one of the comments that I'm bringing into this whole discussion is that work needs to be done in consideration of the bridge. I mean, I can't have them both happen at the same time. I don't think you should do them both at the same time. I don't think so anyway, but, traffic engineers and smart people will debate it, but we have to debate it. We have to put it on the table or we won't know.
So I'm going to say that there's been, we should move along, Vic. And you have had, okay, 10 seconds.
while we're brainstorming in this, when you brainstorm, you come up with wild things and then you figure out the feasibility later. As opposed to doing widen the bridge or whatever, keep that the way it is, build a new bridge in another location, another part of the harbor. Just an idea.
I've heard that suggestion, actually. I mean, that's what Long Beach did. They built the bridge next to the bridge. Yeah, I've heard that suggestion. I think we should put it in. I think nothing should be off the table. That's what scoping is all about. But it sounds like a big effort. But I apologize for taking so much time. This has been really helpful to me. I can't tell you how helpful it is to me to hear from real people about real issues.
Council member, it's important that we heard from you your dedicated or your feeling about what we have so far with the scoping and the lack thereof, and the fact that there's an opportunity for people to really start thinking about this. I do want to remind you all that there will be another opportunity. We're going to work toward that. So please don't let this be your only place to bring your ideas to the table. Caltrans has to hear them. So I hope you're all remembering what you said so that we could...
Good job. It's up there.
And so let's make sure that the right people hear the message. Gwen, we have to move on. I'm sorry. Because we still have our
you know how to find me.
Officer.
Just give me a call. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And let's give our senior lead officer an opportunity to say hello and...
Good evening, guys and gals. That was long, but a lot of good dialogue between everybody. I'll start with our basic stats. Still don't have any homicides within Harbor Division, and that's actually unheard of. So I think that's actually, it's a great thing, of course, but that's a test to the hard work of the men and women who are on this department, who are on the LAPD in general, but for who work at Harbor Division. We had one more robbery than we did year to date. We did have the liquor store that was hit down at Channel and Gaffey. That's still an ongoing investigation. These are basically the stats for... yeah, sorry. We did have the robbery that happened down at Channel and Gaffey at the liquor store. It's still an ongoing investigation. They are making headway on it, though. I spoke to the robbery detectives. As far as basically most of our Part 1 crime, we're actually doing pretty well. We've gone down 70% in burglaries from only 3 in the month of April, as opposed to last year for 2022 of 10. GTAs, that's the one constant, which is Grand Theft Autos. Stolen cars are continuing to be stolen. It's Kias and Chevy Tahoes. Trying to do the best we can. We run a lot of plates. We have a bunch of our vehicle. They're trying to get us some new vehicles, but we have our plate readers on our cars. Those basically, so when you're driving the car, it's got a plate reader on top, and when you go by, it just takes pictures of all the plates of the cars that you drive by, and they do get hits on them. So they are pretty effective, and hopefully we have more cars coming that are equipped with those, so we can continue to combat the stolen vehicle problem. Burglary from motor vehicles, right around the same, 14 in 2023, as opposed to having 13 of them last year to date. Those are basically catalytic converter thefts. And reading through the reports, unfortunately, some people are still not locking their vehicles. And I know sometimes, we got so much stuff going on, getting home from work, school, different places. But I tell people it may seem like you check the door twice, but just check it, because these guys, a lot of these people are they just commit crimes of opportunity as they're walking by. If your door is open, they'll take something out of there. And if it's locked, they won't. If they do make them earn, make these people who unfortunately walk down the street and commit crimes, make them actually have to work for it. the thefts were kind of right the same. I've been doing a lot of work talking. We had a retail theft task force last week with we had people from Target and Home Depot and some of the Northwest San Pedro businesses. So we're continuing to reach out to them, and there's a lot of stuff that's in the works. We're going to continue to meet with them. They're trying to, as far as the what's happened is they've made the limits of petty theft and what used to be a felony crime go up, and now these guys and gals are committing thefts, and there's not a whole lot that happens to them. So that's the unfortunate part. So hopefully it can be relooked at again, and because people are just shoplifting, and it's like, man, it's pretty bad. But like I said, on the crime front, Part 1 crimes we're actually doing not bad. It's some areas are good, some areas not as good. But like I said, continue to lock doors, the best you can, and that stuff. As far as projects I have going on, 300 Westmont is a huge project of mine. I've been working with CD15, with my field deputy, and with CD15's office in general. We've done a couple of homeless cleanups, a couple of just cleanups in general, but the homeless people generate a lot of trash and stuff that they get out of trash cans and different things, and it just really makes a mess. So we're trying to get those cleanups going, continuing to keep those cleanups going. One of the things about it, and I'm not going to, Ms. Jacobs touched on it a lot, is the housing. The people have to be receptive to the housing. So it's not if it was really easy to just take the RV, and that'd be pretty easy, but it doesn't work like that. They have to be receptive, take the long-term, short-term housing, whichever it may be. And, that's what'll continue to, this homeless problems. We can't arrest our way out of it. It's not going to work like that. We have to continue to use resources and try to help these people out. They are, like I say, they are people. They do, they are. It's just tough. A lot of people are in tough situations, and I do understand that. But it's just a continuing. It's going to take everybody. It's going to take community members, police officers, everybody working in partnership to just try to just keep chipping away at it every day. Let's see. Continuing, we also I have a coffee with a cop coming up. It's on May 16th at 3 o'clock at the Starbucks on Westmont and Western. We also have Fleet Week coming up, just some events that we've had on the calendar, 4th of July. We're getting ready to, all this stuff is going to kick off soon. We're going to have our summer night lights, all that stuff. So the Community Relations Office at Harbor Division is in full swing. We got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of good events. We just did our carnival in Wilmington the last couple days. So it's been busy, but we're ramping up for the summer. As looked at my notes in our last meeting approximately 1 month ago, traffic enforcement. I've done them personally myself, 7th and Cabrillo, 7th and Ellery, different locations, just been trying to get out there. I wrote 20, 30 tickets out there last time between the 3 times I was out there. I've also continued to talk to my guys who work South Traffic to see if they can get out there, some of the motor officers. And that's about it. Take any questions that you guys have.
Thank you. Any questions from around the table? Johnny B.
Jason.
Yes, sir.
Over on Capitol and Myler, in and around our areas there, it's usually anywhere between 12:30 and 3 in the morning. The burnouts, they're getting more and more. We just went, when I come from our place, I cut back behind the Ralphs and everything. Mm-hmm. And back there, I just saw tonight, there's like a half dozen burnouts in the back half of there too. But over like where Mel's at and everything, they're just, you could see the marks, the skid marks. It's getting, pretty bad. And now they're doing it on Myler and Gatun. There were a couple of, and it was last week, right? They had done it, but they're doing it between 12:30 and 4 in the morning sometime. And I'm up late.
Okay.
Not that I don't sleep, but I'm up, and I know you hear them real good. you know. And I know Mel hears it, but it's not just one car. It's maybe one will do it, and then a few seconds later you'll hear another car because you can hear the difference in the revving of the vehicle and stuff. So
throughout the city of LA, they call them takeovers and sideshows. It's becoming an increasingly more of a problem. You get people that come together, and these folks, young kids and adolescents, and adults as well, and they close down the street and they do these donuts and these burnouts, and kids are getting, you got all these people that get out with their phones, and people are getting injured and killed at these things. It's really bad. I just was looking at my phone right now as I was listening to the other speakers, and there was a guy at Alma and 11th today in that area, and he's doing it right in the middle of the street. He's on my radar now. It's a Nissan. If you guys see a Nissan 350Z burgundy in color, I'm looking for him now. So, but yeah, I'll talk to the nighttime guys, the morning guys. I'm not usually here at those hours, but lately sometimes I'm changing my schedule just so I can, maybe work at least one time a month where I can work at nighttime hours and stay until, 3 or 4 in the morning to address those issues.
Thank you, John. Chris? Yeah, thanks. It's interesting you brought this up just now. I was at an event over the weekend with Supervisor Mitchell up in the Firestone area, and where there's a significant presence of these sort of takeovers and street racing and things like that. And they've tried to make some traffic improvements. I guess my question would be towards enforcement. Are there any assets or resources that you have available other than just standard patrol to deal with that kind of stuff? Like you mentioned sort of maybe having to set some time aside to sort of stake these places out or whatever, but obviously in some of the communities to the north, it's a known quantity that people are actually like literally coming in from out of town. Like I think the comment that I heard that people in some cases coming as far as Ventura or Riverside because they know that essentially there's sort of a soft target in LA that they can, we've seen the videos that this is that it's even a possibility kind of speaks to a problem. So do you have any sense of what might be required to deter that or to act against it when it happens?
What they do have is they have the Street Racer Task Force, and most of those resources are located within South Traffic, but they have the whole bureau, which would be 77 Division, Southwest Division, LAPD Harbor Division. So I can get with them. I haven't seen, quote unquote, a street takeover or heard much here in Harbor Division. It may, like I said, it's a street takeover is a lot more. You got, hundreds, if not, 50 to 100 people out there. It's a little different than a guy driving in a circle and spinning out, which is still not cool. And that's something that I can handle on my level, on the street level. If a dude's spinning his tires, I was just driving through Wilmington, and the guy I guess he didn't see me behind him, and over there off of Freeze and G, and he just lets his tires go, and he's going down the block. There's a school right there, and I guess he didn't see me. And I said, well, this ticket's going to cost you about $500-600. He didn't really even seem to care. I said, well, we'll see what his license was valid. So, I gave him the ticket. I wasn't able to, but he's like, oh, I didn't see you behind me, but it didn't seem like a big deal. And I'm looking at, and I take him out of his car. I'm like, hey man, you don't just do, I rarely ever do it. Yeah. You got the burnt rubber all over your car from doing this all the time. This ain't your first rodeo, buddy. So, but yeah, on that, as far as that, and I don't want it to be done anywhere, but if it's done on a back street, they think, oh, nobody's seeing me. But these street takeovers, the ones you talked about, sir, like up in South LA, it's bad. They're really bad, and people are, and I haven't heard of it. I'm glad it's not down here. And if we nip it in the bud and continue to, get our guys out there so it doesn't come down here. So.
Thanks.
Yeah. Mel?
I don't know if this last week you had a conversation with Deanne Dedman.
With who? Sorry.
Deanne Dedman, the head of Rec and Park.
I did.
Because she informed me last week because I contacted her because I placed a call into LAPD to the 911 call for the park because we had ponies and a petting zoo in the park and all kinds of pony rides and everything and petting zoo. And I'm like, okay, these aren't supposed to be in here.
Harbor Highlands Park?
So Harbor Highlands,
okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They were all over the place in there.
Wow.
And I'm like going, oh, God. So I contacted the Rangers and they're like, we don't have Rangers for you anymore. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I contacted Deanne, sent her the pictures, and she contacted me back, and she told me that she was going to be talking with you guys because the Harbor Regional Rangers are no longer existent for us. They're gone. We have no park rangers for this area anymore. And it's falling directly on LAPD. So she's going to have to get a partnership with you guys. And I guess, but somebody's got to tell dispatch, because when I called, she's like, we aren't sending anybody for petting zoo and ponies.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's so okay. I thought you were talking about the lady here, the park and rec director here. So I didn't get that call. I'll reach out to them. If you have a number, actually, I'll call them directly myself. So we can just, like you said, get on board. As far as the Rangers situation, the Rangers, they didn't have a lot anyway. And the ones that they did were based out of Ken Malloy Park, but they would come down here and do some patrols. But I don't know what kind of realigning they did, but now most of them are going to be taking Griffith Park on that side of the city. So
yeah, just dispatch needs to be told now, if people call for the park, do not tell them to call park rangers and don't discard them. You need to dispatch officers. It's not your discretion to say one way or the other.
Dispatch, LAPD communications in general, they are a very hardworking group of young men and women who are down there. Their job is it's very stressful. It's tough. I've been down there when I was an FTO for the last 7 years before coming here. I would take my young officers who had just graduated the academy and take them down there just to see what they're dealing with. They're getting calls all over the city. They're talking on the radio to the police officers. It's very stressful. It's a hard job. I believe there's something like 50% of them don't make it. They're not paid all that well. I'm not trying to put in a plug for them, but yeah, I guess I kind of am. And it's tough because it falls on all you community members when everybody tries to call, and it takes an hour for a non-emergency number, or it takes 20, 30 minutes for an emergency call. It needs, I know there's a lot of, I know it's out of my hands, but there's a lot of funding that needs to be set forth so we can get more working dispatchers down there. And, it's a tough situation right now with them. And I know they're, like I said, they're hardworking guys and gals down there that are really trying their best.
Thank you. We'll take our last question from Gwen, and then we'll have to move on.
Well, I'm really saddened to hear that the Rangers are going to be coming here, because this is a very sensitive time. I've already talked to Jason about this, and it'll be a discussion at the CPAD meeting. But there was a brush fire over just off of the freeway, on the freeway side, up by the community gardens, and this happened on Saturday, same spot that it had occurred prior. The brush is starting to dry up, and I don't know how we are going to get the Department of Transportation involved, Caltrans, the port, whoever has little patches of land, whether it's rec and park, get them to clear it quickly. This is a window of opportunity, because last year at May, we started to have brush fires. The first one was, again, the warning sign was right there at the channel exit, right there by the community garden, and it happened again. So we're in a window as it heats up. Peck Park is highly saturated with vegetation, and as are some of the other parks. So I'm hoping that at CPAB and the community here and our own members will start talking to neighbors that surround the park and have them vigilant towards any activity that's in the park, especially fireworks. But if there are no rangers that are going to be coming, I don't know if we're going to be able to really request that the contractors come out to clear out the vegetation in that park as quickly as possible. But hopefully we can start collaborating with LAPD, try to figure out something to do for any activity that's going on, because fireworks,
Yes, ma'am. We're going to pick up the slack with, they've offered a bunch of different patrols, especially for our ATVs. They've certified a bunch of new ATV officers. So they're going to be just going through those canyons, and hopefully that's going to deter some of these guys. As far as the fireworks issue, that's something that we deal with every year. It's tough when you can go right to Lomita Boulevard or right to Main Street, and just on the other side, there's a huge firework thing. And then across the street, it's legal, and across the street, it's not legal. It's kind of mind boggling, actually. But we're going to, like I said, we're going to definitely ramp up the patrols with our ATVs, and I think they're actually a pretty good help. So we're just going to have to pick up the slack where the Rangers left off. Unfortunately, I think it's out of their hands. They didn't want to do that, but budgets and it's all stuff that's a little bit above my head, unfortunately, but we just got to make it work. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you, Jason, for being here. And,
thanks, guys.
For all your hard work. Okay, we're going to go on to agenda item number 6, a presentation from Philip 66. Guys, thank you so much for your patience. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. You're going to be talking about the Marine Oil Terminal Maintenance and Engineering Standards, MOTEM. So take it away.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having us tonight. My name is Marshall. I work in the environmental department at the refinery, and I'm here to talk about a project that we are working on with the Port of LA. And just like the project you were just talking about on the Vincent Thomas Bridge, this is a case where the state is saying you need to do these repairs and upgrades, so therefore it should be done. So we are anxious to get this project moving and upgrade our marine terminal as required by this standard, which has a mouthful of a name. It's called the Marine Oil Terminal and Marine Oil Terminal Engineering and Maintenance Standard, MOTEMS or MOTEMS, which is just a long-winded way of saying upgrade to better withstand an earthquake. If a ship or vessel is tied up at your wharf, discharging or loading oil, you need to upgrade so that it's strong enough so that if an earthquake hits when that's happening, it minimizes the chance of a fire or spill to water. In our case, what's equally important on our project is what it is not. It is not an expansion of our oil terminal. It will not increase the capacity of the terminal as far as how many gallons or barrels it can handle in a year, whether loading or unloading. And it certainly does not increase the capacity of the refinery in any way. Go to the next slide, please. The project, again, is to minimize the chance of oil spills and to improve health and safety and protection of the environment. It's basically, in our case, it's going to be kind of in 3 major phases because we have actually, I'll show you in a minute, we actually have 2 wharfs, which for whatever reason the Port of LA considers each wharf to be 2 berths. Don't ask me how they decided that. But we have 2 wharfs. So the first step of the project will be to upgrade the wharf that we currently use, which is a concrete wharf. It will partially upgrade it, not all the way to MOTEM standards, but it will increase its safety so that we can continue to use it during the construction period on our other wharf, which is an much older, all wood timber wharf, which is in terrible condition. We stopped using it years ago. So that wood wharf will be completely removed, demolished, and replaced with a modern steel and concrete wharf that's made to current engineering standards that meets MOTEMs. And then the third phase we will decommission the concrete wharf, at least as far as using it for handling oil. It will still remain available as basically a parking spot for, tugs or ships or anything. Next slide. As far as the location, if you're not familiar exactly where our terminal is in the Port of LA, shown here on this photograph, which is, like you're hovering above San Pedro and you're looking toward Long Beach there. You can see the Vincent Thomas Bridge there kind of on the right. And you can see our terminal is there on that point of land just north of the bridge. So the next time you're driving over the bridge, right when you get to the very top, look to the north, and that's our terminal there. Here's a kind of a satellite view of the terminal, showing, it's outlined there in red dashes. That's the boundary of our terminal, except we do not have that kind of sliver of land right down the middle, which is outlined in blue. That's never been part of our terminal. that previously was occupied by other tenants. It's currently vacant land, but the Port of LA is working with the prior tenants on that piece of property. So that's never has been part of our terminal and will not be in the future. But there you can see the two wharfs. The one on the left there, identified as 148, 149, that's the current concrete one we're using that will be partially upgraded. And then the old wood wharf, which is identified as berths 150 and 151, that's the one that will be totally demolished and replaced with a new modern steel and concrete one. Next one, please. Again, the benefits of the projects of what I've mentioned. It's going to upgrade seismic and fire protection, reduce the spill potential, improve impact protection from when the vessels come in, and bump against the wharf. It'll do some other modernization. The MOTEM standard is the meat of it is, upgrading the wharf itself to be strong enough to withstand an earthquake when a ship is tied up to it. But the standard also requires upgrading your fire protection system, upgrading your electrical system, installing automatic closing valves to stop loading or unloading of oil. Again, in the event of an earthquake, all an operator has to do is punch a button. Within 30 seconds, those valves have to shut. So we're upgrading our electrical system, which will include a backup emergency diesel generator, again, to provide power for those automatic valves in case we lose our electrical feed from the Department of Water and Power, LA Department of Water and Power. So again, it improves safety and the environment. Again, this is kind of a summary of kind of repeating some of the things I just said. Currently, we have these two wharf structures that are going to be upgraded. Besides serving the main purpose of our terminal, which has been part of the Wilmington portion of our refinery, which is the refinery originally built by Union Oil or Unocal, if any of you remember that old name. They originally constructed the refinery and the marine terminal at the same time, starting in 1919. So we're over 100 years old now. So the marine terminal has always been an integral part of at least the Wilmington portion of our refinery. And it primarily serves the refinery. However, Phillips 60, and of course it's now owned by Phillips 66. Phillips also owns a plant up right next to Compton that blends and packages lubricating oils, just like you use in your car engine, but also for industrial use. And we don't provide any of the raw material. Our refinery does not provide any of the raw materials for that plant, oddly enough. It imports most of its raw materials from other refineries. About 80% of their raw materials comes through our marine terminal. Comes in on barge, we unload it into small tanks, and then trucks take it up to their packaging plant. And again, MOTEMS does not affect their capacity at all. The amount of lube oil they use is, for the most part, pretty constant from year to year. But it's also part of the operation of the terminal. As far as the refinery is concerned, we handle what we call intermediate feedstocks, which are partially refined oils that refineries, buy and sell from each other, depending on how what's going on with their refinery. If part of it's down for maintenance, we might have an excess of a certain intermediate, partially processed oil that we can sell to somebody else because they need it. And likewise, there are times when we're short on something. Again, if we have part of our refinery down for required maintenance, we'll want to purchase intermediate stocks from somebody else so that we can keep the rest of our refinery, running as highest capacity as we can. We also, though, load out finished products, such an example being marine diesel. We sell that to ships that come into the port because, all ships, whether container ships or whatever, when they get close to the port of LA and other ports around the world, they're required to switch to very low sulfur fuel, which is basically the same as the diesel fuel that's used in cars and trucks. So basically, we're the filling station for those ships when they're in port if they need to top off their tanks of this low sulfur, basically diesel fuel. And one other relatively new commodity we're handling through our marine terminal is renewable diesel, which is diesel made from vegetable oil. Again, we don't produce it. We don't process that vegetable oil here at this refinery, but Phillips does up at our refinery in the San Francisco Bay Area. Currently, they're producing that renewable diesel today, and in fact, they're going to finish converting that entire refinery to nothing but vegetable oil processing. They're going to stop processing conventional crude oil. I think next month, actually, they're going to run their last few barrels. They've already converted about half the refinery, and they're going to complete the conversion to be able to run all kinds of vegetable oils up there. Right now, I think they're mainly running soybean oil primarily. But anyway, because if you go into one of our branded stations here in LA that has the 76 brand on it, if that station sells diesel, you'll see that it's renewable diesel. So all of that renewable, since we don't produce it at this refinery, all of that renewable diesel has to come down from San Francisco by barge, comes through our marine terminal, and goes out to the stations. You go to the next one, which is that's what the dispensers look like in the stations that have their renewable diesel. They have that now green identifying color to show you that it's renewable diesel instead of conventional. And I think I've covered most of these here. And again, another important point that I want to emphasize, which has come up before on this project, we do not handle crude oil at this terminal. To my knowledge, I don't know what Union Oil did 100 years ago, but at least in modern times, since I've been at this refinery since 1989, and we have never handled crude oil. Our current permits from the South Coast Air Quality Management District do not allow us to handle crude oil. We have no intention of changing that. So no crude oil at this terminal. Again, this kind of summarizes here some other issues. Again, repeat some of the things we've said, but our refinery, we feel, is an important part of the local community and the economy here in Southern California. We provide about 700 jobs, good-paying, middle-class jobs. Most of our hourly employees are represented by the United Steelworkers, and a lot of the contractors we use for skilled labor, such as pipe fitters and electricians, they are building trade union members. And also, as you can imagine, we support a lot of support businesses because of the materials and supplies we have to buy for running the refinery, making repairs, etc. So we have a ripple effect or multiplier effect to other businesses in the local community that provide jobs. And we are committed for this project. We will, again, be using building trade labor for the construction. And again, I always said, does not expand marine oil. We don't handle crude oil. It doesn't expand the refinery. But it does enable us to continue providing the energy that Southern California needs. I'm sure you're all aware that the state of California has passed a regulation, the California Air Resources Board, that says we have to start phasing out the sale of internal combustion engine-driven light-duty vehicles starting in 2026, and by 2035, 100% of all new light-duty vehicle, meaning cars and standard pickups. The goal is to be 100% electric on new car sales by then. But remember, there's about 28 million light-duty vehicles on the road in California today. You're not going to turn over that fleet overnight. The demand for our product is not going to fall off a cliff in 2035. It might be a slow decline as we gradually turn over the fleet to more and more electric. That's going to take a long time. So our product is going to be needed for people to get to work every day for years to come. Next. And finally, so if you want to contact us, here's some phone numbers for getting a hold of us. I have some business cards with me. If anyone wants to contact me directly, I'd be happy to. So that's the formal part of my presentation. I'm certainly looking forward to any questions you have.
Okay, I see some hands. So I don't know what order they were lifted, but I'm just going to go around the table. Let's start with John, and then Gwen, and then I'll work my way around.
The 150 side is done.
The mic, John.
The dock. The 150 side is done. The dock is already complete, already worked on?
No.
150.
The 150, 151 is the old wood wharf, which we have not used for years because it's in such bad condition. Mm-hmm. That's going to be totally demolished and replaced with a new concrete and steel one.
And you did the other side?
The other side, which when you were looking at the...
inside.
The drawing, the part that faces San Pedro,
right.
That's the current 148, 149, which is the concrete one that we are using today.
Yeah.
The wood one kind of faces the Vincent Thomas Bridge, kind of the south.
Right.
That's the one that's currently out of use, has been out of use for years, and that's what's going to be totally demolished.
I just didn't remember that inside one being used that much.
Yeah, that's all we're using now. When you say inside, the one kind of facing Pedro.
Right.
Yeah,
it was always on the face.
Right.
Most of the Chevron ships that came in, and whatever they came in. And you're saying that you produce the stuff there, or you mix it, or whatever you do with it. Are there trucks coming in that facility to pick up, or do you use a pipeline?
As far as supporting the refinery, it's all by pipeline. The only trucks that come in are the lube oil blend stocks I mentioned that come in by barge, go into tanks, then are loaded into trucks to take it up to this lube oil plant up in Compton, which again, like I was saying, is handled by a totally different part of our corporation, doesn't have anything to do with the refinery.
Okay, so from here, the 150 area, how far does that pipeline go inland? The pipeline.
The pipeline?
Yeah, how far does it go? Where does it go to?
Well, you can see in the picture there, the pipelines basically come toward, from the vantage point of this photograph right here, the pipelines are basically coming right at you to connect to the refinery. So they basically go under that portion of the waterway, go under the freeway, and then connect to our refinery. Because our refinery is kind of a little bit, it's across the freeway and a little bit north of the marine terminal. So the pipelines kind of go at a diagonal, basically under the water and under the freeway into the refinery.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So what is the lifespan of this new improvement? 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, 80 years?
Again, we're working with the Port of LA on the EIR for this project. The goal is to get the EIR done this year, by the end of this calendar year, so that we can then start the physical construction, which will take a couple of years. So the main part of the EIR is addressing all the MOTEMs, the impacts of the MOTEMs construction. The other piece of this EIR is we are seeking a long-term lease with the Port of LA. Minimum 20-year lease, but with the option for possibly 2 10-year extensions.
Well, with that, so clearly, as you had just said, there's a long lifetime for these fuels in the future. But, it may have the possibility of transitioning from local import to more export to other countries. Is that a feasibility where there will be more outgoing on ships to other nations? Because it's a cleaner fuel, So my assumption is as the United States phases out, there's still the usability of those products for countries that are trying to phase off of coal, still need certain oil, oil products and gas products.
I mean,
so
that's a possibility, yes.
Okay. But my last bit, with the EIRs and everything, of course, the pipeline is probably of a certain age. Is the pipeline also concurrently being modernized as well? And if so, is there proposals for a lower depth below the water? I don't know what the future is for the port, but I would assume that as ships get larger, the depth of they'll have to dredge and make deeper channels. I don't know if those kind of things are being taken into consideration.
The current scope of the project does not touch those pipelines. There's actually more than one. There's several, but the scope of the project doesn't touch those. They're currently regulated by either the state fire marshal or federal government. So, there are standards we have to meet as far as inspection and pressure testing and automatic shutdown systems, et cetera. So they have been upgraded over the years to comply with current standards and requirements. But this project will not touch those pipelines.
But half of the facility has been closed down for a period of time. So half of the facility has been shut down for a period of time because of the inability of using it because of it being so old. So are there any pipelines?
Not the facility, just the two. There's two physical wharfs. One has been out of use, but the rest, as far as the pumps and the piping and the tanks that handle the various products, that's been ongoing. It's not like half of that's shut down. That's not the case.
Okay, thank you. Just clarification.
Yes.
You.
Juliana, did you have something to say? Later.
I know we're coming up to our 20-minute time. Leon Moreno, Corporate Advisor, closest to 6. We do have that email address for very specific questions. These are all great questions, but I know we're going to run out of time before they finish off. So if there are any questions by the end of our time, we definitely encourage you to send them over. We are expecting the draft EIRs to come out in the fall of this year, and there will be a 45-day comment period to the public, and that's what's clear. So I'm just being aware of our time. We're out of time when you guys.
Thank you. Dan?
Non-scary question. How long are the wharfs?
How physically long are they?
How long are they?
Man, I knew you'd come up. Somebody come up with a question that would totally stump me.
Within 100 feet.
Well, you can kind of tell from that one aerial photograph. It gives you an idea of the scale. They're pretty long. I'd say the wood one's got to be 200 feet. I think the concrete one's probably a little longer.
Oh, really? So they're not
250.
They're not the full length of the ships.
Oh yeah, they're quite long. Mm-hmm.
How big are the ships that come in? I mean, are they giant super tankers or smaller?
No.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
No, we can't handle. It's not deep enough there. No, we can't handle those huge ones. No.
John?
And just a quick comment.
How much water is in the ocean? Oh. One of the questions is, and I worked at the airport for many years, and I know we had red diesel over there because it's off-road, and green diesel is supposedly highway.
Mm-hmm.
Is that new oil that you guys are talking about, the vegetables, the oil and everything, will it be used for both, or is it just for highway?
It can be used for either. I mean, red was just, they dyed it red.
Right.
The diesel's the same.
But they wouldn't let us at the airport. They wouldn't let us use in the diesel equipment like pushback tractors. You couldn't use green. You had to use the red.
That's just a tax issue. Right?
Yeah.
Green diesel that goes in vehicles that are on the road have to pay road tax to maintain the roads. The red diesel, which is used in off-road equipment, like your tractors, or if you have a farm and you have a tractor that runs on diesel, you don't pay road tax because it's not used on the road. That's the only difference.
Yeah. Okay.
But the renewable diesel is chemically identical to petroleum diesel, the same thing.
Cynthia?
Is this the EIR, is that going to incorporate a tsunami possibility from an earthquake or just earthquakes?
That's a good question. I mean, the port is writing the document right now, so I'm not sure if they're going to cover tsunami or not.
Okay.
Pat.
Three questions. Three. Start way back. This Newbury Council commented on making the payment debt. And one time to do a budget comment on the NOP as well. No problems with the motion part of it. The comments all concern the pollution and contamination of the background and the impacts of your activities, particularly in the tanks and pipelines, messing with contaminated soil. First question I have is that both the NMB and the NOP decided that you were increasing throughput from 6 million barrels a year to 13 million barrels a year. What accounts for that increase? And what's still planning to do to increase by 7 million barrels in throughput? That's the first question. I'll give you the other two. All right. In July of last year, so 10 months ago, the Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board issued Phillips and the port and a couple of other agencies to drafted cleanup and abatement order for that entire parcel. I didn't see any mention either in the NCD or the NOP about how you're going to know the work that you're doing on the 26th. I mean, the additional tanks, in addition to the additional pipeline or two. How are you going to know that with the cleanup obligations you have under the Water Quality Control Board? And how are you going to address it in the EIR? For example, one of the charts we had in the NMB had like a year and a quarter trying to work on the tanks because there's no line at all for dealing with any contaminated soil you might encounter. So if you can address that, how are you going to address that in the EIR? And the third question I have is that paragraph 14 on the order on the 6th page of the whole order is pretty more good. By the way, it's almost 100 pages long. It's a massive order. And paragraph 14 on page 6, the only bold highlighted paragraph heading suggested a community participation group. So when we have our fourth committee meeting and come back here, I'm certainly going to raise that issue with our committee and maybe with the full board to participate in that kind of citizen participation thing on this project. And what would Phillips have to be about complying with that part of the agreement?
Let me address, maybe Juliana can help me address that in a minute, but as far as the issue of excavation, contaminated soil, et cetera, and the cleanup and abatement order, this site has been under the direction and oversight of the Regional Water Quality Control Board since 1987. That's when the original cleanup and abatement order was issued to Unical, who was the owner at the time. So the cleanup and abatement order has been upgraded or modified over the years, and we have been complying with its requirements all this time. If you go to their website, you'll find that there are hundreds of pages of documents that you can review that have concerning the cleanup activities we have been doing, the monitoring that we have to report to them regularly. I think it's quarterly. We've been under their oversight for 35 years now. So I think you might be referring to a recent revision of the cleanup and abatement order, but it's not a new one. There's been various ones in effect for 35 years. But as far as excavation for this project, there's no new pipelines to start with. We are rearranging some of the piping that is already above ground inside the terminal to get it away from the water, again, to improve spill protection. But there's no new buried pipelines part of this project. And as far as the tanks that are included in the that were in the M&D and are going to be in the EIR, those are existing tanks that just need maintenance work. So there's not going to be any excavation related to the refurbishment of existing tanks. The 11 tanks mentioned are all have been out of service and cleaned for years. Well, again, that's being addressed through the cleanup and abatement order with the Water Quality Control Board. Because we have cleanup activities have been ongoing for years. That's what the cleanup and abatement order requires. It required us to, initially assess the site, identify contamination, and come up with a plan for monitoring and remediating the soil in place. So that's been going on for 35 years. I don't have the ability to address that.
Juliana, you had your hand up. You have a...
You mentioned 2 points. You mentioned the increase in the numbers, that difference. That is not an increase in capacity. It is the capacity that we have as of now. But the reality is that our operations are also based on market demand. And we are not currently using it to the capacity that we do already have available.
Right. Yes, as Juliana said, as far as the issue of the increased usage of the terminal, that's related to the fact that because we're asking for this long-term lease, the port asked us, okay, we want to tell the public, what do you think the future usage of the terminal might be? So they're asking us to, predict business conditions 20, 30, 40 years in the future. As you can imagine, that's a very inexact science. But don't confuse capacity with utilization. We have the capacity to pump those higher numbers you see in that document today. We just don't have the customers demanding that much product from us today. Well, that's the case. They just ask us, what do you think you're going to be doing in the future? Well, we made our best guess at what possibly might be the case. Might not happen. It just depends on business conditions.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate the information that you shared. I'd like to invite our Port and Environmental Sustainability and Environment Committee to perhaps maybe, you can come out to them and, for those people who who would like more information, more detailed information, that'd probably be the best avenue, and then they can share with the rest of the board. So thank you for being here.
Just to make a note, and we meet following Tuesday after this every month. So, yeah, we'd be very happy to have you come. I'll send an invite.
And thank you, Juliana. And Joya was your other representative who came out that last time. It was a non-quorum meeting, but it was a really great discussion with you guys. So, yeah, I hope to see you. We hope to see you.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You've got a great voice, by the way.
Dan just left right now also. So agenda item number 6 is completed. We're going to move to the consent calendar. Agenda item number 7, and we have 2 items on there. That's the approval of the meetings, the stakeholder meeting on April 10th, and to appoint Cole Areola Carr to the Community Issues Committee. It's been a request that he join up on that one. So we have 2 items. So if we can get a move on those 2.
I moved.
Second.
Okay. Melanie moved. I think I heard Chris second.
I did.
Any discussion? I see no hands up. Can we take the vote count?
Yeah, hang on. Okay. John Barbera?
Yes.
Nick's gone. John DeMeglio?
Yes.
Craig? I just wrote absent. Sorry. Cynthia? Yes. Gwen?
Yes.
Melanie?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Ray?
Yes.
Who's not here? That's what it is. Angela? Yes. Chris?
Yes.
Carries.
Oh.
What's your name? Adam Stevenson. Adam Stevenson? Correct. Sorry, some of you I don't know yet, so I apologize. Adam Stevenson. Yes, thank you, and I won't miss you next time, I promise. Motion carries.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and go to our motions, and we have budget and finance first. Melanie?
Okay. Everybody open to page 18, and you'll see the MER. This is not out of committee because I just got this right before our packets were due. So I'm going to need someone to move this, and then a second.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Chris?
Norman.
Chris moved. Thomas second. Okay, any discussion?
Go.
Okay, so call for the vote. Thomas?
Yes.
John Barbera?
Yes.
Ray?
Yes.
John DeMeglio?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Cynthia? Yes. Adam?
Yes.
Gwen?
Yes.
Melanie, yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Angela? Yes. And Chris?
Yes.
Okay, next is on page... It's kind of backwards here. Page 10. And this is out of committee, so any discussion? Okay, call for the vote. Thomas?
Yes.
John Barbera?
Yes.
Ray?
Yes.
John DeMeglio?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Cynthia? Adam?
Yes.
Gwen?
Yes.
Melanie, yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Angela?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the next page is our submission for our movie. We have our minutes. We have a flyer. And we have the budget. And we have the invoice for the movie. This is approval of use of the $800 for the movie, not to exceed. It's out of committee. So, any discussion? Okay, Thomas?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Ray?
Yes.
John DeMeglio?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Did you say? I didn't hear you.
Yes,
Craig.
yes.
Yes? Okay. Cynthia?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
Gwen?
Yes.
Melanie, yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Angela?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Okay. The next item is following the Swank invoice. It's San Pedro Pride Festival that's going to be held at the port. They've requested $1,000 sponsorship from us. This is out of committee. Any discussion?
I just had a question when you say out of committee. These are all, a lot of, the last one and this one were both from, we're out of both outreach and
Yeah.
budget.
This came from outreach and it went to budget and finance.
I mean, we don't say that, so I just wanted to make clear.
Yeah. It's out of both committees. Yeah. Yeah, because we can't directly approve anything through budget and finance.
No, I know. I just
Yeah.
wanted to clarify that.
Yeah. Any other discussion? Okay. Thomas?
Yes.
John Barbera?
Yes.
Ray?
Yes.
John DeMeglio?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
Gwen?
Yes.
Melanie, yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Angela?
Yes.
Chris Follier?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the next item, this came through executive committee and then to budget and finance. This is for a anvil case. Currently, this is out of committee, so this is discussion. Currently, all of our wires that you see here, all the extension cords, everything are in duffel bags and canvas bags and et cetera. So this is to get them all in one place so it's just not the way to carry and store stuff. So this will store everything, including the projector. So any further discussion? Kelly?
Is this actually big enough?
Mm-hmm.
It
Yes.
doesn't look like a big.
Yes.
Okay.
That's huge.
All righty. So Thomas?
Yes.
John Barbera?
Yes.
Ray?
Yes.
John DeMeglio?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
Gwen?
Yes.
Melanie, yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Angela?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Okay, and that's it.
Thank you. This one is, the next item is out of the executive committee. Because we're starting up our new year with, we're starting up coming back into public meetings. We rely a lot on our parks people to be able to, set things up, but also tear things down. Last month, I know that Michael was here till probably at least 9:30, maybe a little bit later, and tearing things down, and there was help. So what we're going to try to do so that we can kind of respect the time for our parks people, see if we can look at that our meetings not exceed 8:30. Maybe we'll play, be a little bit flexible with it, but it's I think in all fairness to our park partners, they deserve to get home at a reasonable time, just like we all would like to. It would mean that we would probably have to be real good about our questions and things like that, and help each other be timely on that. So, so this did come out of committee, the executive committee, and so we're open to discussion on this. If there's any,
I have a comment.
Okay, Melanie.
The only concern I have is with what happened today. I was here at 5:15. John, our audio person, had gotten here before me. The room was a disaster. Tables were everywhere, chairs were everywhere. Things weren't set up, and they were trying to rapidly set up. And it was crazy, and that's part of the delay. John didn't have a chance to get his audio set up because he was busy trying to even get a table to set his audio stuff because everything was on a disarray. So they're going to have to be in partnership with this time schedule with us to get things, or we're going to have people to set up here prior to the meeting.
I'll just say that the parks people have been very good partners with us.
Yeah.
They have originally they asked that we pay for that extra hour that they're here, because the park technically ends at 8. They're out of here. However, we were able to negotiate that parks will pay for that extra hour that they're supposed to be here. So if we're out of here later than that extra hour, then that's just more money these people have to pay. So they are in partnership with us.
I understand that.
So I hear what you say, and we're still trying. Excuse me, Craig, please, Craig. Just let me explain. So with that said, we are trying to make sure that we get here and set up. We're still dealing with the threads that we're trying to figure out during the course of not being here for 3 years. So I think we need to be a little bit flexible with that. So let's just work on that, and we'll get this thing taken care
My
of.
suggestion is that we have people come, volunteer to come and set up. It would be a lot less stressor on Rec and Park here if we had people here and not our audio person. Actually, board members show up early enough to help set up.
Then we will make sure that we get people out here to help set up, as we used to do earlier. So, any other questions or comments? Yeah, Chris.
With that in mind, because it's what I'll plan to do personally. If possible, if board members could be here at 5:30, basically so that we would be in our seats ready to roll. But if half a dozen or 10 people are here, then we could throw the tables and chairs up relatively quickly, and it would just be, we probably would get started on time, and therefore meeting the end time would be easier. And then something I believe I mentioned at the executive committee meeting is that, I think that a robust and sometimes lengthy conversation is kind of the reason we're here, but it's extra important to consider that when you're speaking, such as I'm doing right now, you are borrowing the time from everybody else in attendance. So please be thoughtful in advance and concise as possible, because what you're doing is basically eating up time that we may need later. And if it can be said once, then 3 times is probably not necessary.
Thank you. Any other comments? No? Okay.
Just
one
little thing. I'm hoping we're just skipping forward. I'm hoping that on Liz, on reports, that animal services can be added to that, and potentially we'll talk about one more item.
Animal services?
Animal services, yeah.
You want that to talk about that now?
No. It's
because we're
running out of time, just to have it on the list, because I don't even see it on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay. I got you. Yeah, John.
I think we need to set a thing saying where are we going to cut the time, so we can all agree on it. Because there's some people that overspeak too much, and there's some people that don't speak at all.
Are you saying to put a time on the agenda so that we know what each item is going to be? Is that what I'm hearing?
There's also some of the speakers that are, it's going on and on. And we have to cut some of that out, because those are the main people that are taking the time. I understand it all has to be said and done, but if you want to cut time, we got to know where we're going to cut the time.
So
And I'll make a recommendation then. Under presentations, I was 20 minutes total, including the Q&A. That same kind of standard be set for some of our governmental and public
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
I think there should be a limit on each committee, 10 minutes maximum that they can talk, whether it's the homeless issues or whatever. So we can cut that down. Let's cut it all down to so much time. And then we can make the questions, we can question everything as we can, because there's going to be a lot of questions.
We certainly can do that. Yeah. We can try that, see how it works on our So, absolutely. So, any other questions? Any other comments? Craig.
Just comment, and when we were in the executive committee, I said that we should, 8:30 should be the guideline, and we should make a hard stop at 8:45 if we're going to get out of here by 9, because things go on. My other comment is we should form an ad hoc committee to set up hard guidelines for us to follow, because things get out of control really quick, especially with in this meeting with our elected and other things. We had huge discussions that were not planned for. Some of the stuff could have been sent to committees. I think we need to plan something a lot stronger.
Am I hearing an amendment or something?
I'm suggesting or making a motion that we send it to an ad hoc committee to further plan how we should structure the meeting so we can limit the time.
Is someone writing that down? Because I'm not. Sorry. I gave you a form.
What?
His amendment. I have no idea what that
bylaws, or is there a committee that would really take it
Well, that's a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, but there was no motion.
I made a motion that we
Do you know what that motion was? Here.
Is that one of these things here? Oh, this one?
Yeah, that one.
Also, Ray, if we cut the meeting off at 9 o'clock, whatever, 8:30, 8:45.
Okay, amend.
And they say, that's it. We need to, the main stuff we need to get by has to be done ahead of time. But can we cut some stuff off and come back to it on the next meeting?
Yeah, actually, if we don't hit some of these stuff, it should be covered right off the bat on the next meeting.
Yeah.
It should. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So we just get up and leave and continue the next meeting. And then no matter what, the time is, even if you add on, it's going to add on time to the next meeting.
You're right.
Someone's got to cut.
Kind of
a
vicious cycle type thing.
Because lately it's been late.
Yeah. So I'm open to the ad hoc committee thing once it's written up, and we can do that.
So we're going to act on that. That one's seconded, so
we'll do that first. The ad hoc, and then they can take it out.
Hello. Right.
Yes.
Is there any way that we could put the committee reports? We're all literate and we could read them. Could we have it so that we just read them instead of having to have them reported on? That would cut a huge chunk of the end of the meeting when we're done. I don't want to cut off the councilman speaking about something that's very relevant to us, or the safety, or the police officer speaking about crime, because that's where the majority of our meeting was on those components. And but on these reports and stuff, we can read them. They're here. We can read them. There's nothing worse than having something read to you that you can read. And I think that would cut a big point. Yeah, I think that would be a big, point.
There was a period of time early on when, the actual report was part of the motion, whatever was moving, whatever, then it was shifted to an actual agenda item for the report. But I think that's, every committee should have a report turned in so that it can be sent to our support. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen.
Pardon me, I wrote the motion. Move that we form an ad hoc committee to make timelines for meeting and put together what should go to committee.
Is there open for comment at the moment? Because I have a comment on this.
We need a second.
No, you already have a second.
He seconded.
Yeah, John seconded.
John seconded. Okay.
Can I comment?
No, we have discussion.
I believe that this could be well suited for the retreat that we have, or bylaws can discuss this at a future time. But I think that the retreat would be a good opportunity, as well as discussing how we manage the reports. Usually the reports, when we do them orally, it's when we have an audience. We don't have an audience, so it's meaningless and we can adjourn. So, and we can read it on our own. But usually the reports include motions that we have written up, and that's part of the motion and vote and that process. So that's also necessary. But
whatever comes out of committee, it can be short and sweet. This is what came out of committee. This is a motion, and let's vote on it, and then discuss it. But if we keep that part of it short, we can get a little more discussion out.
Point of order. I think we have to close out the first motion that's out of committee first before we can entertain a second motion.
No, this is an amendment
because
to that
that's
motion.
out of committee.
I'm hearing that this is
an amendment.
It's basically an amendment to.
Yeah, so we have
it's an amendment to it.
That's
okay.
how I'm seeing it. It's an amendment, and then when we get that, then we.
I'm just to put it is, I'm all for ending the meeting at 8:30. What I think we need to do is come up with everything else in between. So this is an addition to that. So this is an amendment. We should be voting on it. I call the question if I can get a second.
One other thing, leaving those guys to the end, they should have been brought up first.
Well, we
there. I mean, I know you thank them for their patience, but the committee stuff, everything else could have came after that.
Well, all the committee stuff. The only thing that took a long time was the public officials. That's what really burned us with time today.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think it was last time also that last month it was kind of the same thing, and we did start late today. That really burned some time off the clock. So what I'd like to do, I'd like to take the amendment. Chris, do you have something to say?
Yeah, just that I think we should be cautious about sort of preemptively putting values on the category of contribution. Like if a committee does work that needs to be discussed and be presented, we need to honor that because they didn't do that work, just to have it printed up and put it in this packet. So sometimes presenting it is important because that's maybe a reason that people come. And that also doesn't mean that anything that comes before is necessarily more or less important. We have a fixed amount of time, and I think that having some structure that all parties know about in advance is very, very helpful, but we should make sure that at least in theory, and we may have to be tactical about it on a given evening, but there should be, like if it's issues or public safety or has something to present, we shouldn't just assume that can just go in the packet and we can blow it off. Like we want to make sure that they have a reason to do that work every month.
I believe this discussion is really great for the retreat that we might have, because these are some of the technical issues.
I would tend to agree.
Well, we can have the ad hoc committee look into it, and we can get the report back at the retreat.
That sounds good.
Does that sound fair?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's go for the vote for the amendment, which is set up the ad hoc, and then the hard stop at 8:30. So shall we take the amendment first? The ad hoc committee.
Is it a hard stop?
or a flexible hard?
Well, I say hard stop.
Okay.
I mean, we used to work on the value that we were going to have a hard stop at 9:00, but look what happened. So you don't want to be rigid. Perhaps maybe if it's a minute or 2 or 3, but our goal is 8:30 is what I'm saying. Because so with that said,
Okay, on the amendment, John Barbera,
Yes.
John DeMaglio,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Cynthia, yes, Gwen,
Abstain.
Melanie,
Yeah.
Kelly,
Yes.
Thomas, Ray,
yes.
Adam,
Yes.
Angela,
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Now the motion as amended.
And now the motion as amended.
I'm not sure how I'm going to do, but I'll make it work. John Barbera,
Yes.
John DeMaglio,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Cynthia,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Melanie,
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
Wait, Melanie.
Oh, wait a minute, sorry.
That's a,
Yes.
sorry, I went, wait, that voice didn't go with Melanie. It's like something's wrong here. It's late, folks. Thomas. Ray.
Yes.
Adam.
Yes.
Angela.
Yes.
Chris. Ta-da.
Yes.
Are we moving to adjourn?
I think you just did.
No, what I want to do though, I mean, since we have an ad hoc, I'd like to be able to maybe appoint that ad hoc right now. Can we do that so that we can start working on it right away? So if there are a few of you under quorum that would like to be on that ad hoc to map out what our agendas look like in the future, so that we can present them and look at them at the retreat, which will occur, I'm going to anticipate in July. Then who would like to be on it so that we could get it started? Okay, I see Melanie. Anyone else? Craig? Anyone? Adam? Angela, okay. I bless you all. The ad hoc committee.
Can you do that?
If I had a sword, I would hit you all on the shoulder.
And Craig,
Okay.
since it's your motion, you're the chair.
Okay. All right. So start your work as soon as you can. Yes, absolutely.
Some of my related councils, when they do their newsletter, they actually put what every committee, highlights of what every committee is working on, so that the stakeholders know what's going on too. So we should look at that.
That's a good idea.
Basically,
And then it's interesting because, the newsletter comes out, this is last.
yeah. I think knowing the topics, it might bring more people in. Or,
Everybody should submit just a few bullet points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another aspect of the ad hoc committee working on it. So it's 9:03. I would like to respect all of your time because we've been here for a long time. We've had some really good information. Remember what you said about bridge project? Make sure that you say it publicly so that Caltrans can hear it when we have that meeting with them again. So I'm just saying that. And with that, I'd like to adjourn. We do have another piece of this agenda that we can, that we're not going to touch, but if I can.